I love field phenomena. I love lightning too. I don't know how much you love lightning. Some of you have actually been struck by lightning. I've nearly been struck by lightning 3 times. I was impacted by lightning, so I could technically say I've been struck by lightning. However, it was peripheral. But we all suffer from a lot of delusions, and humanity is not really that evolved when it comes to understanding fields. And I grew up just like you, believing this nonsense that lightning strikes, from cloud to ground. And there's an interesting phenomena that we only recently discovered.
I just don't understand how he's going to evade this entanglement situation. I don't know what the Einstein field is, but somehow to bring it back to a charge theory and to race, time element is inviting this. It's what invites like the very nature of our groupism, of our group think, and if there's no element of time, if you erase distance in the universe, or you erase just the quantum gravitational pull that has happened within a time period in your subjective thought, as seconds have gone by and the earth has moved thousands of feet, in terms of that general relativity, it's inviting a time element, and therefore you can grow upon that. But even if it is nonsensical and erroneous to do, and it doesn't precipitate anything else other than argumentation, still just having something that freezes the universe is a very having something go on just in the physical sense. You're talking about the nature of physical reality, or the nature of physical universe phenomenon, and it's like, if you want to, you either choose to invite all the other sciences, biology, chemistry, anthropology, whatever you choose to invite in, or you have an element of time in your physical universe and you recognize that those other things are happening. And to invite those other things is dangerous in terms of groupthink, in terms of sneaking back into a religion.
Now that we have high altitude aircraft, and they're called sprites.
Just in terms of religion being dangerous to the psychology of human beings, and to just the value of sentience, and just the overall ramification of enlisting into a timeless dimension, a dimension that offers no time. It only offers present activity, or that, I mean, it's, you can delve into that, but if you just only have one present activity and you don't have anything time related, you don't have a timeline, a timescape, something to prepare for, then like even just the experimentation, the hypothesis nature, or the scientific method nature, it's going to invite something. People, I mean, that's just what it invites. It invites timelessness.
And they actually spew out into outer space, and they charge up the atoms. It's a fascinating phenomenon, but I don't want to hear talking about sprites. But I, like you, for much of my life, suffered under the delusion that lightning strikes from cloud to ground. And this is simply not true. Eric Dollars actually talked about this to a very small degree. And I wanted to talk about this, and the dendritic pattern of lightning is absolutely fascinating, and it also too follows a phi logarithmic, i.e. the golden ratio, which of course is incredibly brilliant.
Again, I mean, if we just talk about, again, just building upon the theory of charge, or what charge consists of, or what the atom is doing. Let me see a picture of the atom. None of that is relative to the present dimension This is the escapism of the fallacy of having a physical universe without the quantum graphic, without having something that is perpetuating, amplituding. You can't have, you're just contriving, you're just digging for contrivances in other sciences. And that's what I mean by the storytelling. There is no essence of the depletion of distance the Earth has traveled through the universe when a thought is taking place. That is a real phenomenon. That is a unequivocal phenomenon compared to artistic precedent in terms of what we think theoretically about the universe. When you can't, this is how it's going to incorporate evolution into the physical graphic card. Because if you can't have time, then you're just going to build off of charge. That's quite obvious.
Brilliant. It's beautiful, and explaining that would take a long time. Not really. This step leader pattern that you actually see, they actually will take lucite and bombard it with ultra-high radiation X-rays, and they'll create lightning artwork. It's not really lightning, but it looks identical to lightning. It's this dendritic capture. They charge up the lucite, they take it behind this, I think it's lead.
I mean, who is too stupid to see a graphic and understand its very nature and quality, and you have all the details. It's just something that is symbolic for something that we can't perceive that is happening. That doesn't mean, that's not an evasion of what is the nature of the truth, unless you use it for your own self-interest and you sell it. You can obviously sell many worlds and say things could have happened differently, or this is how we have to perceive, or you can utilize it in terms of theorizing it to be something that is created in that is established in distance travel through the universe and time. That's why I am depicting that physics doesn't need an art form. All it needs is the apple falling from the tree, or the crystal pyramid with the rain, with the pH, with the light scale shown through it. I mean, it doesn't need more evaluation in terms of creating a more specific and demanded form of the charge, form of the polarization.
Covered barriers, not in Chicago. Other people do it, and it's bombarded with enormous amounts of radiation. So it creates this electrostatic torsion. They think it's electrons, which of course is complete lunacy and absurdity, but who cares what they think about that. Anyway, they charge it up, and there's videos on this, and when it comes out, you have to wear gloves. It's just charged up, because things that are clear, people think are an insulator, they're actually capacitors. So there's an enormous amount of charge held within this lucite. It's been bombarded with ultra-high energy X-rays, just literally super bombarded. I mean, it would be wickedly deadly to any human being to go across that conveyor belt that this lucite does, which is, I don't know if you know what lucite is, like thick, clear plastic. And they'll sit there, and it's just a nail on the end of a stick, and the nail is actually grounded. And they'll put it up on its edge, and put it right in the center of the thick edge of it, and they'll whack it with a hammer. And all of that dielectric tension dissipates into counter space, which is what a ground is anyway.
I have no problem with a counter space, antimatter, an ether, an elasticity, elasticity of the universe, polarization, Sagan or what have you with the charge. I have a serious problem with not having a dimension of distance travel through the universe while something has taken place. two things are happening. I have a problem with one thing happening in the entire field. I don't have a problem with one thing happening and not being and another unknown thing happening. Because that is the reality of the physical nature of our universe, and that is what makes sense. And to defame mathematics for recognizing something in the quantum sense in this unconventional or secular way is not something that is commendable.
Lightning is not striking from cloud to ground. Now, superficially, we think that that's the case. And we'll see stepped leaders, they're called. Some of them then, of course, don't make contact with ground, and that's how human beings have this idea that lightning strikes from cloud to ground, but that's not the case. And there are many images of this. It's hard to capture because it's not a rare phenomenon at all, but it's rather hard. There's not an enormous amount of images that have been captured of this, but you can do a Google search, type in upward streamers, where there's this charge saturation in the atmosphere because of not only the Earth, but also too the clouds, but the lightning is not going from cloud to ground. And then these upward leaders, basically, it's called upward lightning. Some people call it upward lightning. And I've known a few people that have seen it, and it's when you see that.
So he's saying that the ether closes in on Earth, and this is what is causing lightning to shoot out of it. And once again, just a renunciation. That's all these. That's all classical physics really is. It's just a renunciation. At least it's at the very least, it's a departure from understanding the universe in a timeless field. But if you only have experiments that precipitate a timeless dimension, you are not going to be able to build upon that. There is nothing philosophical to be able to rejuvenate any insight into the quality of your natural problem.
You better run, because that means that the discharge saturation, which is the impulse current in the air, it's not actually in the air itself, the oxygen and nitrogen, is such that it is looking to dissipate. If you see an upward streamer, then you're in trouble. Hopefully not, but I mean, it might hit you. Anyway, you'll actually see lightning strikes where there's many upward streamers being emitted from the ground towards the cloud, and it is looking to connect. But people say, well, lightning is grounded out, and we still have this idea that lightning strikes from cloud to ground, and that's not the case. It's actually a impulse current in a discharge into counter space. And Dellert said it accurately, and I'm not going to feign, to be the first person to say this. He said it in one of his videos, and he's actually 100% correct. Of course, he said that it's completely ridiculous, something along these lines. He said, the thing is lightning. He said, if you build your lightning arresters on the idea that lightning strikes from cloud to ground, you're going to fail. Your lightning arrestor system is going to fail. He said, is it a lateral discharge?
Now he said that's correct, and in the experiment he is talking about, you can see the convergence of antimatter. You can see the convergence of what he calls the ether, the antimatter, into the conventional nail in the wood. And he was describing in the X-ray how you can see its effect. So, I mean, I don't know whether, I mean, in terms of there has to be a give, a take, there has to be a cause and effect. And in terms of there having to be a cause, like the law of cause and effect, whether the lightning strikes up from the earth, or the ether dissipates into the earth and causes a lightning strike to shoot up, it doesn't matter, because there's still I would say, in terms of that relation, a cause and effect, or a cause and effect for both of them. So I mean, that's why I don't really have a problem with an antimatter, or something happening that you can't something that you can't calculate, and that's the cause of a certain scientific effect.
Discharge. In the counter space, it is a desaturation effect. It is an impulse current discharge in the counter space. And this is accurate. And yet all of us, we were taught this and we see this. And it's the same thing with magnetism. Correct observations, but incorrect conclusions. That what a magnet is this device that has a magnetic field around it. That's a magnet, and has magnetism around it. Well, the primary factor of a magnet is it's a dielectric hyperboloid, but people aren't fascinated by that.
Even if I'm fascinated by the gravity, by the or the, let's say, the high energy physical Earth that is being saturated by the sun and the moon, even if I'm unequivocally, even if that is unequivocally valid and sound and accurate to me, it doesn't dissipate from the fact that there is a dimension of gravity happening between the three bodies, the sun, the moon, and the earth. There'd still be an unequivocal gravitational push or pull of certain momentum that is allowing the acceleration to be copacetic, and in turn there is a compensation for what is happening. That's why the high energy field is not going to break or be able to dodge an asteroid. I mean, that's just a logical way of seeing something that is timeless. It's an understanding of something not being able to be broken. In terms of the Drakean equations, or the Draconian mathematical physics equations, these equations, what's sort of demanding from me, and why people aren't fascinated by the equations, is that they really can tell a lot more than just a picture. In terms of this a picture telling 1,000 words cliche, this is really just a bad cliche, or a worship of art, just this worship of art form, and not the interest, or the vested time into research, development, whatever. How just because Darwin wrote his Origin of Species to spark evolution doesn't mean that there's going to be more qualitative responses to that book. Just because something is right the first time doesn't mean that it can be rewritten in terms of science and research, developing theories, and things like that. So, I mean, it's people turning to intuition to look for a side effect. It's not people grasping at the nature of the disease, saying this is what's happening, and this is, that it's really that type of classical modern mechanics, classical and quantum mechanics, that it can kind of be looked at as symptom and disease, in terms of that cause and effect nature. I know I didn't explain that well, but I'm just saying, if you eliminate the concept of time into a physical universe theory, you have this relation. Remember, uh, you have a relation with a timeless. You have a timeless intuition, and it's tied and married to a gravitational argument. Yes, in fact, and in theory, and all this stuff being correct, but I just don't understand a gripe with having quantum mechanics and the dimension of time, and why that would be a problem, because it only is progress in the sense of physics. Of course, so long as people aren't selling it and people aren't abusing it.
No, that's not what is moving metal pieces around. So everybody's seen lightning, either up close or off in the distance. You know, from superficial observation, we think, well, it's striking the ground. You know, there's the thunderstorm, the big dangerous clouds that are up there, they're therefore lightning. You know, because it's bad weather. Bad weather is up there, it's not down here, right? How would we ever think that lightning is anything other than cloud to ground? That superficial, accurate observation is, however, an incorrect conclusion.
Well, I mean, how? All right, that's a totally superficial. Again, okay, that's I don't need to listen to anything more. If he's going to call a thunderstorm superficial, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. If you play around with, if you turn physics into a Platonic theory, if you get Platonic with physics in terms of the Pauli notion, and there's just atoms, and it's just a field of atoms, and you play with those graphics and invite the timeless dimension into a physical universe, you have no argument to that isn't going to replicate something that is that would be looked at as a mystical belief. And I mean, in terms of the Schrodinger equation, if you say here is your charge, and then over here there's a gravitation happening, there's a charge and there's an invisible gravitational happening. I'm just saying that's step one and that's step two. At least you can see that there is something happening, but just saying that there is a charge, you don't know what to actually apply it to. I'd say, so long as you have that element of charge with the gravity, whether theoretical. I'm just saying, obviously, quantum gravity cannot be proved. General relativity cannot be proved, but special relativity is everywhere, and that's the point. Special relativity is everywhere, and general relativity can't be proved, the quantum gravity, and this is because they can't track the expansion or compression of the universe. I'm just saying there has to be a give and take with this. If there, in terms of a duality, there can be timelessness or there can be time. There can be yeah, I mean, but if you have, in terms of it's sort of like a mono one following, or a linear following in physics. Again, it's just doing graphics, and I would say it's not really inviting the whole nature of reality. So quantum physics, in terms of all of these YouTubers abusing quantum physics, it doesn't have to be looked at in the way everybody views it, but in terms of it being a qualitative response to classical mechanics, it is very well off, because it invites unknown, it invites the time into the actual problem. Again, all terrible arguments aside, quantum mechanics has not been proven. It is quantum mechanics. I would say classical mechanics has not been proven. These are hypotheses for that were tested. Again, so hypotheses in quantum mechanics that are testing, yes, there are some that are very terrible, but in terms of the overall intuition of quantum mechanics and it being able to incorporate or in value the entire physical universe as opposed to devalue the entire physical universe and pick it apart. That is where I would say persists a problem.
And this is fascinating. Fields are fascinating. And people have made fun of me. I don't hear people say subspace or zero space or counter space, the ether. It doesn't make any difference. But lightning is not a cloud to ground phenomenon. It is a desaturation, lateral into counter space. And if you've actually ever seen lightning up close and didn't close your eyes, because it is, of course, very frightening and loud.
Again, this whole, I mean, even if you have a kinetic energy doesn't have to be a response to a photoelectric effect where there is that we are made out of photonic particles. I would say that quantum mechanics, we're not saying that we're made up of photonic particles, or we're made up of a long line of energy, a long line of high atomic energy. That's obviously not what is being said. What is being said is that there is a physical distribution that is happening while there is another physical distribution happening. You could even say to simply put it in that sense. Somebody's core beliefs of whether or not what's going to happen to them when they're going to die, all that stuff is irrelevant in the nature of an argument about the physical reality. Just because something is happening in a small space, just because there is charge or there is antimatter happening in a small space, it doesn't take away from the fact that there is something happening to make that happen. That should correlate into the entire essence of the universe, and that is quantum mechanics. Rather than being classical mechanics, so which I would just term normal, not normal, but just like immature field theory. Not immature, but I mean, I don't really know how to say that, but yeah, classical mechanics just has that problem, I would say, with not having time. So, and that's not to make something more classical would even be an inflation, cosmos inflation. Obviously, that's a graphical nature. Singularity is left with an unknown. So obviously, cosmic inflation isn't an unknown. It's outright space fact, and to just, I don't know, I guess get mad at the word warp, like a time warp continuum just being a word, just having a photo electric effect happening to explain a cosmos. It just makes sense. I mean, if you can understand the universe, you can understand evolution, I would say. In that sense, not taking quantum mechanics literally, taking it figuratively, really, is all I was getting at. You have a different understanding. So I don't know what that fucking means, but I'm just saying the math is there's nothing wrong with the math. The math is fine. And yeah, there just shouldn't be any arguments. There should just be, in terms of classical mechanics, that classical mechanics doesn't have an element of time in its equation, and quantum theory does, and that makes it logically more rational to the definition of physics and what we're trying to actually argue. Even though it's an interpretation, that's still what classical mechanics is in terms of it just being a graphic. So try to listen to it a little bit more.
You'll actually see the desaturation in counter space. You'll actually see the lightning pulse, and you can see that it is discharging in a counter space, but it must have a ground. But the desaturation of the impulse current of the lightning is discharged into counter space. It's not discharging into the ground. Well, sure there is. There's fulgurites, and you've all seen lightning rods and the streak. Well, that's just true.
Again, it's just defending a core elementation or a core presentation of what a physical structure actually is. But I'm just saying, if you can't do two things at once, if you can't balance two things at once, you're going to have a problem, because it's just one more step forward, just in terms of the whole word game being played out anyway.
Has to find a ground. Yes. Many times lightning doesn't hit the ground. It will discharge into counter space halfway between the clouds and the grounds. And where do you think it is grounding out then? Most lightning strikes do not make a connection between the cloud and ground. You see, most of you know that also. Anyway, the field phenomenon of lightning is fascinating, especially, the many years I lived in Florida, where there's an enormous amount of lightning phenomenon. It's scary, it's frightening, it's dangerous as hell, obviously so, because it's ultra high voltage, and it will do some serious damage to you, obviously.